Hello friends, and welcome to another wrap up video. My battery has now just dropped to 1. Unbelievable. So I feel like April was the month of like the 3-star reads. I do class 3 stars as pretty good, like sort of like okay generally. I enjoy it, but it's not like the best thing I've ever read. But anyway, without further ado, let's get into what I read. I will also be including what I want to read for May in terms of the Ayearathon. Wow, I said that really weird. The Ayearathon. I'll be taking part again that month. So yeah, I read, let me quickly talk about this actually. Mind, Body and Spirit, Enhancing Your Mind, Body and Spirit, issue 12. This is the magazines that I'm trying to get through because I sort of was really excited to read them when they first came out, and then I've got like a subscription for them and I'm up to like 40 something and I'm so far behind, but I really do enjoy this. It's basically like astrology stuff, crystals, Reiki, like all that sort of mind, body and spirit thing, and I really did enjoy this one. This was talking about crystals, health, astrology, love, sleep, friendship, massage, detox, herbal remedies, stress relief and spiritual experiences. They generally have that sort of vibe anyway. As you collect them, they have like a binder where you will categorize each section. But yeah, I am still loving these. I really do need to push myself and read more each month, but one a month so far is at least progress for me. It's just that I prefer reading like novels to magazines, but this is stuff that's encouraging my knowledge of this thing, which I'm obviously clearly interested in, so I will continue to read these. First actual novel I read was Black Klansman, Race, Hate and the Undercover Investigation of a Lifetime by Sergeant Ron Stallworth. I won't be talking too much about this because I actually want to do a book versus film showdown thing like I did for the Troll Hunter book slash TV show, but this obviously is recently a film. That's why I want to do that sort of video. I think it came out in 2018, last year. Really interesting. I ended up giving it 5 stars, so I keep meaning to look out for the film so that I can do my review on that. But yeah, I really did enjoy that. Stay tuned to that video to see more in-depth thoughts and comparisons and stuff like that if you're interested. But it was an epic book, real life based story as well. Awesome. I should probably say that it's about the a black cop is basically managing an undercover operation into the Ku Klux Klan in America, and it was amazing. Crazy story, like how could that work, but awesome. After that I read An Absolutely Remarkable Thing by Hank Green, which I gave it 5 stars. I have already got a book review on that. It's coming in I think a week or a couple of days or something, so I will link that in the cards when it's available for you guys to watch. This one I really did enjoy as well, obviously from the 5 stars. We're basically following a girl called April May who stumbles on an absolutely remarkable thing one night. I think it's like 3 AM in the morning, and she decides whether to just carry on walking past it or to stop and do something that will change her life forever. So you follow her journey as she comes to terms with the decisions she made and kind of the consequences that have come from that. But yeah, it was really awesome. Again, video will be linked in the cards if you do want to watch it. After that I read Finale by Becca Fitzpatrick, and I gave this 2 stars. I finally finished the Hush Hush sequence. If some of you might have forgotten, I've been reading it each month roughly, starting from February. I started with Crescendo, I think, which was the 2nd book, to do the Hush Hush read along with Bookish Babbles, Chandler Ainsley, I think is her name, and the Psycho Nicks. They've been reading it each month, and April I think was the final month for it. I don't know, I keep meaning to watch the live shows but I keep forgetting. But before that I had wanted to read the 1st book because I had the bind up edition of the 1st and 2nd book for years when I was like really interested in the idea of angel fantasy, and like back in July or June or something of last year I had an Instagram choose as my TBR, and that was one of the books to read. So I finally finished that series. I wasn't intending to read the whole thing, it just sort of fell like that. Circumstances arose that kind of inspired me to continue reading, and yeah, it was just Again, I have a video coming up eventually when I finally finish that Instagram chooses my TBR selection. Well, I'll wrap up those books. It's probably well outdated now because it's taken me ages to pick up those books, but I've read like 2 out of the 3. I just need to read the final one in that selection, and then I'll do like a dedicated wrap up and talk a bit more in depth about the Hush Hush sequence and all of that sort of stuff. But yeah, 2 stars. Mildly entertaining. Like, I just kind of wanted to finish it. I don't know why I tortured myself. yeah, there's that. After that, I read a NetGalley book. It's an arc that I've had for a little while. I'm trying to get through those as well this year. I still keep getting addictive and like requesting so many of those, but I'm going through like the backlog and kind of reading the older titles first, or trying to, or even if I'm just picking up titles from my NetGalley selection and getting reviews up, because I feel like a bad person when I don't do that. But yeah, this was the original Ginny Moon by Benjamin Ludwig. This was a 3-star read for me. So it's basically following this young girl who has been in and out of foster homes, or like forever homes as she calls them. She's dealing with Asperger's, and there's a lot of trauma in her past concerning her birth mother and the circumstances she was brought up. So it's made her even more closed in, and she struggles to kind of deal with the situation that she needs to find her baby doll, but nobody really understands why she's so fixated on it. It's a really interesting story actually, and I feel like it gave me an insight into this complete different situation to me. I've never been in foster care. I don't have Asperger's. So sorry, I forget off the top of my head now. It might not be Asperger's, but she's on the autism, sorry. She's on the autistic spectrum, so it's a completely different lifestyle to me. So I find it completely fascinating to see the different lives and how different things to do with your health, like mental health, physical health, whatever, affects your growing up, as well as obviously trauma from her background, and how that's changed her and made her deal with different things differently. I just find it really, really fascinating to read from like any character's point of view with the autistic on the spectrum sort of wavelength. I think subconsciously I'm looking for the next The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime, and that was by Mark Haddon, which I really adored when I read back in school, and then I bought it again a couple of years later and read it again. I think I'm looking for something like that. This wasn't quite that, and it's just because I like the idea of reading from an autistic point of view. I find it really interesting. But yeah, anyway, that was one of the good points that I really enjoyed about it, as well as how the system deals with children that are more difficult to care for within foster caring, and the whole concept of the mental health and everything like that. I thought that was really interesting to learn about in such a sort of slice of life-esque story, if you know what I mean. And of course I really cared about the story. I was interested to see what would happen in the end, the whole concept between Ginny keep wanting to go back to her birth mother even though her birth mother treated her so poorly, and the kind of reasons that arose from that, like why she wanted to go back. The only bad things I can think of in terms of the story was there was a really graphic scene that I just wasn't expecting about the death of a cat. The first part was kind of bearable, but then it continued, and I feel like that continuation didn't need to be there. I didn't want to read that, and I didn't think it was necessary, so that made me really uncomfortable. And I also feel like it was anticlimactic in a sense, which, I mean, it was an enjoyable story, but it just was kind of, the ending was just so-so, you know. But I mean, I would recommend it if you're interested. I'm happy to have read it. I'm happy that I requested it. So yeah, I'm glad that's something I can tick off now that I've read from my NetGalley backlist and also enjoyed. So after that, I read a load of children's book. It was my nephew's 2nd birthday during the month of April, and I got him like 4 kids books, but of course I bought books I want to read them too. They're really small little children's books, and I felt cheeky. I actually ended up reviewing them and rating them on Goodreads, so they go towards my Goodreads goal, but I did read them, so I don't know, I just feel a little bit silly. But one of them was Can You Say It Too? Woof Woof by Sebastian Braun. Gave this 3 stars. I think I gave all of them 3 stars. It's adorable, hopefully encourages animal sounds for children, like younger children kind of learning words and noises. I feel like it needs more animals. After that I read, so I'm just going to kind of read them off of this here now, My Magical Dragon by Yujin Shin. This is a 3 stars as well. Enjoyable rhymes, hopefully encourages that sing-song-esque feel, but I feel like the tabs that you can pull out of it are really difficult to grip, so I'd imagine if a young child is trying to pull it, they'd have a lot of difficulty. And then there was Where's Mrs. Kangaroo by Angela P. Ahearnius. And that was a 3-star read again. So again, enjoyable, simple, I feel like the facts included could have improved a little bit. You could have learnt a little bit more if you added that, so it would have been a better reading experience, a better learning experience. But other than that, decent, nice little book for a child. And lastly, out of those selections, I got him the ABC Zoo by Rod Campbell. I didn't realise this was actually one of, I think, a Penguin classic, or it's quite an older release book, but this was like a newer cover. I must have seen it in the past, but that was nice to see that it was like an older book. 3 stars again. It's a good level of learning, but again, the flaps, and I think someone else said this on Goodreads, the flaps could be more imaginative. It wasn't like, oh wow, that's cool. It was just like, cool, you know. And then after that, I read The Fork, the Witch and the Worm, Tales from Ayearathon, Part 1, or Part 1, is that what they call it? Volume 1 by Christopher Paolini. I was so freaking excited to read this book. So when this was announced, when I saw that it was announced, it was probably like October, November last year, and then it released at the end of December. I was so excited because if you don't know, the Inheritance cycle is one of my all-time favourite series. I don't really reread books, but I keep meaning to reread this series, and this is one that I would happily reread, if that makes sense. So yeah, I was just really excited and hyped about getting this because it had been so many years since he had written anything, I think, specifically anything in this world, and I just wanted more from the very end of Inheritance. I needed more. Even Inheritance I was excited about because I think there was quite a big gap between the 3rd and the 4th book, Brisinga and Inheritance. But yeah, this was it was like a Christmas miracle for me when I heard this announced. I was like, oh. I ended up giving it a 3 stars. So I was super hyped to be back, as I mentioned. I was so excited to see some of the characters that I absolutely adored in the previous series, specifically Eragon, and seeing him again and kind of where he was at after everything in the final book. And again, it was exciting to see glimpses of other characters as well, like Murtagh and Nasueda and some of the other sort of races in general, like the dwarves and the elves, and sort of like seeing an insight of what was happening, what they were all up to. And again, it left me excited for more. The last sentence of this was great. I'm excited for the rest of the volumes in this. However, I feel like if I had read the cycle again, like just before this, I would have got a lot more out of it. There were some parts where maybe I was a little bit vague in my understanding. Like it was easy, like it was very familiar to jump back in. I recognised quite a lot of things, but there was just those small little nuances which, if I had come fresh out of the books again, I feel like I would have had a greater connection. I also felt like some of the stories in here, I mean there's only 3 stories, but it flows really well, but there was some parts I just didn't care for. For example, the story which actually started it all, which was, I think, The Worm of Colcherus, it just was so long-winded. I didn't really care because it wasn't directly linked to Eragon, and that's what I wanted to know more of. That's where my hype sort of lay, that sort of immediate story. How many times can I say that sort of? And as entertaining as that particular story was in the beginning, it just dragged for far too long. And I know that was actually the short story that started this. At the back it says in the author notes that he didn't feel like he could release that on its own because it was too short, and that's when the idea sort of came about to create this like volume of short stories, which I thought was awesome, but it just, that one particularly wasn't completely for me. But yeah, I'm so glad that I have read this. I'm really excited to see the continuation of this. I believe he's coming out or working on a sci-fi project as well, which I'm excited to see where that goes. But yeah, those are my thoughts on this. So then I read another NetGalley book, which I'm happy with. So that was The Lost City Explorers by Zach Kaplan, Mike Martz and Alvaro Saracea. So this is kind of set, basically, this team of scientists and such are working on like this, in this cave, underwater whirlpool stuff. They're trying to do frequencies to see what's on the other side of it, basically. They're trying to find the lost city of Atlantis. Crazy crap happens, casualties, disappearances, and then we're thrown into the lives of one of the characters that was one of the scientists, his family, so his daughter and his son and a group of like friends, and they're trying to solve what happened. Is this scientific experiment of trying to find this lost city of Atlantis, is it real? Did things happen? Like, the mystery behind the disappearance. And yeah, so I gave that a 3 stars. I love the idea of scientific breakthroughs that are mixed with sort of myth and legend and magic, and this was done quite well in this as well, I feel. The exploration of Atlantis and the idea of it has always been something, again, that's exciting to me. Anything to do with underwater dwellings, mermaids, like those sort of things was awesome. So again, that the fact that this story is kind of based around that idea was awesome for me. I enjoyed that. The fact that we had a good bit of diversity in here, that was also nice, specifically with like sexuality, I'm pretty sure, and also ethnicity as well, so that was nice. In terms of things I didn't enjoy so much, I read this on my computer because with NetGalley, I think I've mentioned before, sometimes the formatting isn't accepted for tablet users, but even still, when I read it on the PC, the formatting is absolutely horrendous. Like sometimes I would click down to go to the next page and it would skip, like jump ahead a couple of pages, and I find that not just for this book but for a lot of the graphic novels that I read on my PC, and it's really annoying because sometimes as well I don't even realise it's happened until I'm like, hold on a minute, that doesn't make sense. Yeah, the digital layout is absolutely crap. Some situations I felt like were far too convenient and that annoyed me, but other than that I'm actually intrigued to continue. I'm going to have to see if my library perhaps has the next volumes if they come out or what, but yeah, I'm interested. After that I read The Cautionary Fables and Fairy Tales by Kel MacDonald and More. So basically I gave this a 3.5 stars. I had the 3rd book of this on NetGalley, but I didn't realise that it was a 3rd in a series, so I thought, oh, I'm going to have to go back and read the others. In hindsight now, they really had nothing to do with each other because they're like a collection of just fables and legends and fairy tales. I didn't need to go back, but I didn't know that at the time. So please do not follow my example by doing this. I read it online, found a website that had it. Please support your artists and your creators monetarily when and if you can, but at that moment it was a silly selfish excuse. I didn't have the time to go to the library to see if they had it. My library is quite outdated anyway, particularly in its graphic novel, comic and manga section, so I had a pretty high surety, that's not a word, that they wouldn't have this. And also I didn't have the extra funds at that point to buy something, especially something to buy the book, the previous books and possibly the 3rd one, especially when I didn't know if it would be something that I'd enjoy. Completely stupid excuse anyway, just don't follow my example, but sometimes I do this when I'm in a desperate situation. But yeah, if it's that case, I will still try and I enjoy the work, I will still try and promote it in other ways. If I love it so much, I will go about and buy a copy for myself, like a physical copy. So please keep that in mind, judge me if you will. But anyway, with that being said, this one, it was a really nice introduction for some fables. It was funny, there was a cool variation in style, but it was very simple, and it was too abrupt. For example, the story with Rapunzel, it was just like, that was it, and I was like, oh, okay. Again guys, I've got far more detailed reviews on Goodreads if you ever do want to check those out. Then continuing on with that, I went and found one for Cautionary Fables and Fairy Tales, the Africa edition, and I gave this one 4 stars. So I learned new stories from different culture. I love the artwork for all the stories. They were all really nice. They're all written by individual people and different illustrators, so each story has a different like pair or single person that illustrates and writes, that do the stories that are inspired by certain things, like the adaptions of them. I thought it was funny and educational, but again, some of the stories were very abrupt. I think that's just going to be the scope of this because they are graphic novels. They are time limited, if you know what I mean. So there's that. And then lastly, the one that I managed to get on NetGalley, there is the Cautionary Fable Tales. That is the Cautionary Fables and Fairy Tales Asia edition by, again, Kel MacDonald and more contributors. So I gave this 4 stars as well. I feel like this was my favourite out of the 3. But it's funny, when you look at the back of the book for this one, it says the 2nd volume. So maybe they don't count the initial one, which was just like a random splodge plodge of fables and fairy tales. I think mainly like things that you would know in the UK, like stories that I would be familiar with. But anyway, maybe that was this, maybe the Africa edition was like a reboot of this series. There's also an I can never say this, Oceania one, an ocean-based story one. Anyway, this is really entertaining. New stories to me. Also see similarities in other stories, which is really nice. It's nice to see the connection of different cultures through storytelling. So that was pretty cool. For example, in the Africa one, there was a tale that basically someone saved an animal. I think it was an alligator, and in turn the alligator wanted to eat the person, so they went to 3 different beings to judge whether the alligator or the person was in the right or wrong. And then in this Asia edition, it was a similar story, but it was with a tiger, and I was like, oh, that's nice to see how the different setting and culture sort of changes the story, but at the base of it, it's still got the same morals and like life lessons. That was pretty cool. I do feel like, especially with this one and with the others, it would definitely benefit from colour. I just feel like because now it clarifies that it is targeted at like middle grade readers, I feel like a bit of colour, not even colour on every page, but a little bit of colour here and there, would definitely attract more people to read it, because it's more appealing to the eye. Once again, it was also very abrupt in some of the stories, and because of that it was confusing. Like, if I wasn't familiar with the story, which probably all the time, because it's a completely different culture to me, I wasn't familiar with their fables, it left me confused, because I was like, well, I don't know how this ends typically. So some things just didn't make sense. Like, I'd imagine they edited it so much that if you're unfamiliar with the tale, you're not gonna know how that's connected, you know what I mean? So yeah, that's all the books that I ended up reading for April. Let's go back to my little stats. So in terms of library loans, I read 3. Friend family loans, I read none. Physical, I read 8 books. Kindle, I read 5 books. Magazines, I read 1. I have read a total of 13 books. Last month I read 14 books. I'm not too fussed. I was very close. Aha! This is before I finish. I was going to talk about one more book. So I did read 13 books, but if I could have finished it, I would have read 14 books. However, I'm filming this on the 2nd, on my granddad's birthday, and I managed to finish this last night on the 1st, so I want to talk about it quickly here, but I am hoping to do a dedicated review. I'll probably mention it again briefly in May, because I did technically finish it in May, but whilst I'm here, I finished The Winter of the Witch by Catherine Arden. So all those stats are still accurate, but I did just want to add this on because I'm filming. I finished this and might as well just talk about it now. So, oh my god, this was the finale to the Winter Night trilogy, starting off with The Bear and the Nightingale, followed by The Girl in the Tower, finishing with The Winter of the Witch, and we're following Vajra in, like, is it 19th century? I'm never sure with my centuries, but it's almost like a medieval Russia, where they're all sort of split by different princes, and this was fantastic. My battery is flashing, so I'm gonna have to charge it before I talk about the books I want to read later, but this was amazing. Heartbreaking, beautiful, 5-star read. Look forward to a review I'm hoping to do shortly. I am back. My camera's charged up a little bit. I have eaten, I have drunk, I am a bit more better. Wow, clearly not. I was getting a little bit sluggish in that last video. I was rushing and then I was stumbling over words, particularly when I was getting to like the 5th, 6th book. I was like, ugh. But anyway, on to May's TBR. So the Ayearathon theme for May this year is finish, catch up with a series. They do challenges now, but I don't really take part in the challenges, so I just concentrate usually on the thing. So it's not necessarily catch up on a series. I think it's just, well, yeah, I guess technically it is finish, catch up, the end. So I'm actually gonna include, even though this isn't a finish or catch up, but I guess I could look at it as I need to catch up with the book because I watched the film, and I also want to do a little review thing of both, and that is Bird Box by Josh Malerman. Oh, Josh Malerman! Oh, I'm seeing his name so much now. Okay, so he did that book with the, oh, what is it called? With the kids that are living in like different towers and they don't know the other gender exists. Is that him? And also another book I saw someone mention, oh, it doesn't say it at the front of this, but I recognise his name now, and I feel like I almost had that realisation before and then I sort of forgot, it wasn't quite connected. But anyway, I recently watched the film, I think back in like February or something, or maybe January, and it's something that I wanted to do a compare contrast of, because I had initially wanted to read the book, but it wasn't something I was super excited to read. Exactly, I had other things that I was more like anticipated. Sorry, I'm just fixing my septum. After seeing the film, I just wanted to see what how the book compares. But it says most people dismissed the reports on the news, but they became too frequent, they became too real, and soon it was happening to people we knew. The internet died, the televisions and radios went silent, the phones stopped ringing, and we couldn't look outside anymore. Josh Malerman's debut novel, oh, I didn't know it was his debut, Bird Box, is a terrifying psychological thriller that will haunt you long after reading. So I had taken this out of the library last month, and I didn't get to it in the end, so I just extended it. So hopefully I can get to it before I need to extend it again. I'm also hoping to read, and I might do a reading vlog on this. I don't know whether to show it because it's like I want it to be a surprise, but I'll just show it. A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J Maas. So yeah, this is the sequel to A Court of Thorns and Roses, which I absolutely disliked. I will share my sort of rant review if you're interested in the cards, if you want a little bit of giggling at my expense, basically spewing that I really dislike that book. But basically, yeah, this is, I guess, finishing and catching up on a series. I'm hoping my mind is changed, because I'm basically Sarah J Maas trash, even though I've only read like 4 of the Throne of Glass books. I need to continue with that as well. But yeah, continuing on with a series, catching up. I hope I enjoy it. It's such a big book as well, so I don't want to be wasting my life on something that I'm not enjoying. But yeah, basically it's like a adult fantasy following the concept of the Beauty and the Beast retelling. So yeah, that's kind of, I guess, maybe all you need to know. And then to make it simple for me, I want to read some more graphic novels, and I recently purchased these, although I haven't hauled them yet. These are Saga Volume 4, Saga Volume 5 by Fiona Staples and Brian K. Vaughan. Oh, I've noticed Fiona Staples' name's first this time on the 5th one, but second on the 4th one. So yeah, this is a intergalactic space opera sort of thing, almost like a Romeo and Juliet-esque tale about 2 sort of warring, opposing species of people that end up falling in love, and they have to go on the run because people hunt them down because they're not allowed to mix and be in love. But yeah, I've already read 3 of the volumes so far. I'm not sure if this is a concluded work or if it's still ongoing. I'm not sure how many are out at the moment, but I keep meaning to continue on. So hopefully this is the month when I do that. I have really enjoyed them up until this point so far, so hopefully I continue to enjoy them now. So yeah, that's it for this video. I was filming and I was like, oh, only 9 minutes, like in the first part before my battery started flaring up, and then it got like 20 minutes, and now it's like probably like 25 minutes. I was like, okay, it's longer than I expected. I thought I could do this, but then I started rambling and I got to a book and I was like, oh. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you have read during April. Let me know what you're hoping to read during May. If you're taking part in any readathons, I would love to know. Yeah, I will catch you on the next video. Bye.